Welcome back, agents, to another episode of Prime Tips. Today we're going to be talking about counterattacking using force amps and turrets. Now, force amps and turrets are not really offensive weapons, but counterstrike weapons. That means they have to be deployed on a portal, and the portal has to be under attack or being hacked by an enemy agent before they have any possibility of making a counterstrike or a counterattack. Most players see these items as useless gear and it's going to simply recycle them as routine just to keep the inventory down. But these things do have a use, but it's pretty limited and specified. If they're used in the right way, they can be fairly effective. So first, let's talk a little bit about what a counterattack is. A counterattack is also known as a zap, especially when you look at a zap range. And it's only possible when an agent hacks or attacks a hostile portal. The counterattack causes that agent to lose a certain amount of XM. Now, the maximum amount of that XM that's drained, and of course the counterattack distance that it happens, depends upon the level of the portal that's making the attack. So if you put these on a higher level portal, they're going to have a bigger range and give more damage. But it can also be modified by the use of force amps and turrets. So counterattacks may occasionally have a critical strike. And if it's a critical strike or a critical attack, that damage then is doubled. It's twice as powerful. Now, I saw one source said that it was 3 times more powerful, but most of the stuff that I saw lined up with just double. So how do they show up on the scanner? Well, mostly you'll hear a noise, you'll see a lightning bolt, and then they'll show up on the scanner as red text in the format of a negative and a number and a percentage mark. Unless it's a critical strike, then it'll be a exclamation point, negative number, exclamation or percentage mark, excuse me, and that'll show up over the avatar. You also, most of the time, what you notice is the audio alert. The audio alert is going to say you've been hit for, and then it will give an indication of how much XM has been drained, 1%, 2%, something like that. What does that XM drainage or damage do? Well, it drains the XM from the scanner of the attacker, and if the scanner hits 0 XM, then the agent can no longer attack. They have to charge up the scanner to do most things. So the big effect that is that this is going to eat up time. It's going to slow down the attacker and how quickly they can damage or take out that portal. It's usually not going to prevent a portal from being taken, but it can delay it. In certain cases, it might discourage the person from attacking it, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So how much XM does a agent have in their scanner? How much damage can they take? Well, again, that depends upon their level. So if you're like level 1, you've got 3,000 XM in your tank, so to say. You get up to level 8, you got 10,000 XM, and you run up to level 16, you got 22,000 XM. So that's just straight. Of course, if you have a hypercube, you get an extra tank, and then you have more that you can damage that you can take and put out there. So, but of course on the hypercube, once it's drained, it's done, and you'd have to throw another one on. It's not something that you can recharge like you can recharge your tank using cubes. So what are the mods? What do they do? Well, first let's look at a turret. A turret is a rare item. The drop rate's about 1 in 500. And it is one of the only mods outside of shields that has stickiness. So it has a 20% stickiness. That means they have a 20% chance of not being stripped off a portal when that portal is hit with a critical strike. If it doesn't have any stickiness and you hit that critical strike, off comes that mod. What it does is the turret increases the counterattack rate and the hit bonus of the portal. And that depends on how they're stacked, how many you put on. So if you've got one turret, the attack frequency goes up to 1.5 times. So it's 1.5 times more likely that it's going to attack when it's hit by an enemy agent or dirty hacked. the thing that most people don't realize is it has a higher chance of a critical hit as well. So it's a 20% chance of being a critical strike when it strikes back. Got 2 turrets, it goes up to 1.9 times, and that critical goes up 40%. So it goes up pretty good. The attack frequency, of course, tapers off 2.1 times, but you've got a 60% chance of a critical. 4 turrets, you're 2.2 times more likely for it to attack, and it's got an 80% chance of a critical. So at that point, it's going to deliver a good amount of damage, especially if it hits that critical. How much damage are we talking about? Well, the numbers that I see kind of change. I think that these are correct, but again, I might be wrong. So a level 1 portal is only 75 XM, and it has a range of about 40 meters that it can do that. So as you move up, you get into like a level 4 portal. You got 500 XM that it can throw out there, and that range is at 55. And you get up to the ones that really matter, which are like the 7s and the 8s. A level 7 portal, 1625 XM at 70 meters. And of course, the big one, a level 8, 2500 XM, all the way out to about 75 meters. So you probably want to use that turret on that level 7 or level 8. So the other mod that we're talking about is the force amp. So what does a force amp do? Well, first of all, they're a rare item. So again, that drop rate's about 1 in 500, and they have 0 stickiness. So if an attacking agent hits a critical strike, that force amp is probably going to pop off, should pop off. But what it does is whenever an agent hacks or attacks that enemy portal, it counterattacks or zaps the agent by multiplying the damage of the attack. So how much can it help out? Again, it depends on how they're stacked, how many you put on there. And there's diminishing returns, so most of the time you won't see a bunch of force amps on. So 1 force amp is going to double the damage. So again, that level 1, 75, that force amp is on there, it's going to hit for 150. Level 8, 1 force amp, 5,000. Put 2 force amps, 2.5 damage, 3, 2.75, 4, just 3 damage, 3 times the damage. But you can't have anything else on the portal. So again, you don't see that very often. Keep in mind that if you have a critical strike, you double that damage. So if you have, say, 1 force amp on there, and you have a turret on there, and the turret goes off and hits the critical, so you're doubling the double. So instead of 2,500, 5,000, 10,000. So you can get it up pretty quick with that combination. That total damage is increased by, of course, the level of the portal. So to be most effective, you're going to put that on a level 7 or a level 8 portal. And you usually use them together. That's where that strategy is involved. So where do you put them and how do you put them is important as well. So let's say you're talking about a single portal. Well, a single player deploys. A lot of times they're going to deploy what is called a FAT, which is a force amp and a turret, because you can only put 2 things on. So that 1 turret is 1.5 times more likely to counterattack. And if it does counterattack, it's got that 20% chance of a critical attack. And then, of course, the force amp is going to double the damage. So like we said, L8 portal delivers 2,500. Force amps boosts that to 5,000. And if you hit the 20%, you can get 10,000 damage. So the range of the damage is anywhere from 2,500 to 10,000 XM. If you had a critical hit counterattack, that can drain the XM charge of any agent level 8 and below in 1 strike. So it might be worth it. And of course, it's more effective on the lower level agents because it'll drain them pretty quickly. What if you have 2 agents? Well, a lot of times they may put in FATs, because you can deploy all 4. So that is a force amp, a turret, and a shield. Now the shield is there to protect that portal because, again, keep in mind, force amp can be stripped off with just 1 critical hit. and you want to try to keep this alive as much. So the 2 turrets, you get 1.9 times more likely to counterattack, and you get a 40% chance of the critical strike. That 1 force amp, 2 times the bonus. Again, you probably don't put 2 force amps on there because you don't get a whole lot of return. So if you got a level 8 portal, again, it throws out that 2500 XM counterattack. The force amp is going to boost it to 5000, and you got a 40% chance of the critical hitting 10,000. So again, it's pretty much like the other one. It's just that the turrets give you a greater percentage of the critical hit and a greater percentage of actually striking back. You could go all out, 2 force amps, 2 turrets. So it doesn't really change the likelihood of the attack. It's still 1.9. You still got 40% chance of the critical strike. You get a little more damage. You get 2.5 the damage. So it boosts that low end to 7,500 each counterattack. And if you hit the 40%, you get the critical. It's 15,000 XM damage to that attacking agent. So that means that critical hit can drain the XM charge of any agent level 11 and below in just 1 strike. Of course, that means they're not using a hypercube. So when do you want to use them? Well, if we're looking at this guy, this probably isn't a really good idea to use it. You want to use them in clusters or fortresses. You notice the red area around here, it would be the area that it would attack and hit somebody, but there's nothing else there. So it's really only going to hit 1 time. To be really effective, you probably want to use them in clusters, or they're called fortresses. So in a situation more like this, now you notice we got a lot of overlapping zap ranges. So if there is an attack, say, on this one right here, a portal that's in the middle of a cluster, and somebody fires off a burster, all of the portals around that are going to catch a little bit of that damage, and that's going to give you that chance of firing off the turrets and the force amps. So you mod them up in those batches, and you got a greater chance of firing and delivering more damage. Since there's multiple force amps and turrets in the area, they call this a fortress, because that chances of the counterattacks go way up, and the possibility of multiple counterattacks go way up, and of course the chances of going up in the criticals goes up. So imagine a portal in the middle that you really want to protect, something like maybe it has a shard, and that particular portal is modded with 4 Aegis shields to keep it safe. But all the portals around it in the splash range, you get them up to level 8 and mod them up as a fortress. So in this case, it looks like we would have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe a dozen. So imagine all of those that are ready to jump back. So let's say if 5 fortress portals are modded with a force amp, 2 turrets, and a shield, and if they all go off, that's a 25,000 XM counterattack. That's enough to drain a level 16 agent in a single counter strike. If they all critical hit, that'd be 50,000 XM. And that could almost drain a level 16 agent with a hypercube. So it's going to go down real quick. And now, what are the chances of 5-way critical counterattack? Well, that's pretty slim. But putting lots of turrets and lots of force amps on every portal in range, you increase your odds a lot. So using force amps and turrets are probably not going to guarantee that you're going to hold that portal, but it is going to help slow down that agent. So if you're looking at protecting a portal that's part of a BAF, and you know that other enemy agents are going to come just as soon as you start throwing those fields and links, if you put it in a fortress and you have somebody there, your chances of being able to recharge and hold that portal until checkpoint go way up. And also, if you have somebody that's poorly equipped, you may run them out of gear. And of course, if you have a lower agent, it's probably just going to fry them quickly, and they're probably going to go away. So, in day-to-day play on a single portal with not much around it, yeah, force amps, turrets, pretty useless. Except you can get a little AP from deploying them, or you can get a little XM from recycling them. The real strength of force amps and turrets are in their numbers. Make that fortress. So, hopefully I'll see you in the field sometime soon. Thanks a lot, agents.